Hi there, and welcome to this edition of the Tonka Report. Today I'm fortunate to have Mayor Rick Weible from St. Bonifacius and Mayor Marvin Johnson from the City of Independence. Welcome, mayors.
Thank you.
It's been a while since we've had both of you on the show, and I'm happy that you guys were able to make some time out of your day to come back today. I thought we'd start the show off as I was sitting here driving into the show thinking about it's late August, and as a past mayor, I recall that this is about the time we start putting budgets together and start thinking about what the work that we have to do and how we're gonna start spending the people's money next year. So Marvin, are you into budgeting season right now?
Very definitely, we're into budgeting, and of course some of the staff has been working on it for a couple months already. We have to have our preliminary budget to the county by the middle of September.
Okay.
So at our first meeting in September, we will be voting on it. And for cities over, I believe it's over 500, or maybe it's 2,000, I'm not exactly sure. We have a 3% levy limit that cap on increases in budget this year again. The legislature put that back on. So there'll be a ceiling for all the bigger cities that they cannot go over 3% of what they spent last year or had budgeted last year. And so that is, we're forced by that, although we have tried for the last 5-6 years where we have not increased our budget very much because of the valuations dropping in housing. And so we had less to work with. So we had a lot of different things that we had to do or just delay. So yes.
Mayor, you sound like you're being mindful of the taxpayers' money and conscientious of...
Always.
So that's
Always.
wonderful.
Yeah.
When you said that about the 3%, I was thinking, I never recall seeing a huge increase in the time when I was mayor just down the road from you, that you ever had anything huge.
No.
So
no.
You've always been really good with that.
Yeah, and part of that is the availability of growth, slow, steady growth. And so we haven't had, to increase the budget to cover additional staff people. And so we've kept a pretty flat budget with a minor increase every year where we were able to, and then flat where we had to keep it flat and did some cutting. And so that's helped the taxpayers. Unfortunately, in our case, housing has gone down in valuation for several years, but the agriculture land in the City of Independence, where we have a lot of it, has increased in value tremendously over the last 4 or 5 years. So that also helped to keep our budget pretty stable as far as valuation and the fiscal disparities that were involved with it. Everything just kind of balanced out. So we didn't have real deep cuts that we had to make, but we've always been mindful of the taxpayer, how they have to pay it.
And I was a bit facetious, but it's always nice to hear mayors that are being mindful of that and realizing that there's people at the end of that roll that are paying for that stuff. Yeah. Mayor Weible, are you into your budgeting as well then? I mean, same guidelines?
We are, and we're a little different. We are an LGA recipient, and what's interesting is that the legislature and the governor decided to increase the LGA funding in the hopes of offering property tax relief for some of the LGA cities. And so we're mindful of that. We looked at our budget. We also looked at the net increase of LGA, which is between 6% and 8% over last year. And we are actually looking at returning all of that LGA additional revenue back to our property tax owners, as well as some additional previous levy increases that we've had back to the taxpayers as well. And so from an overall levy from last year to this year, we're going to see a net delta decrease. So that's going to be a relief, especially for all the property owners in St. Bonnie, especially the businesses where Highway 7 has been shut down because of the roundabout, and in County Road 92. It's the right time to do it. The economy's not quite there in our view, and government really has to watch what it's doing. But we're not cutting everywhere. We're still giving increases to the employees as part of our budget. Sure. We're also looking at additional fixes for our downtown sidewalk for next year, so that will improve those. And all the programs that we've had before, including snow plowing, all those will continue. So these aren't draconian cuts or anything else. So.
Sure. So am I led to believe that all mayors are doing this? So my properties in Minneapolis, I can expect to see my property taxes going down because Minneapolis received an increase in LGA?
I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, although I have not heard a lot of comments about what is happening in other cities because yeah, of the cap that the state has put on. So that's kind of been the discussion piece. And one good thing that's happened, the legislature did say that we don't have to pay sales tax.
Right.
And so that's helping us on the spending side too.
Yeah, sure.
So, that's not a whole lot of money unless you're going to have some major construction or, in fact, I just told staff to check on this morning. We had a budget meeting, asked them to look to see how much they estimated we paid for sales tax just the last couple of years on materials or anything that was taxed by the city. So we'll see.
It'll be interesting to see. It warms my heart, and I knew, Rick, that you would be this way. Receive the LGA and doing actually what they said to do with it. I think a lot of cities, you'll see them hitting the 3% increase and taking the LGA and not making it seem like the budget went up as much as it should have. And if LGA goes away, which it will go away again, those cities will be hurting again with huge increases where for you it's not that way as all. And Marvin, you don't have to worry about that.
Well, we don't have to worry about it, but it means the taxpayers basically pay all of our bills because it comes directly from property taxes, except for a minor amount. And in our case, it's about $70,000 that comes from fiscal disparities. That's from the pot of money with businesses and so forth in the metro area. But all the rest of our money is basically tax dollars.
Right.
We have to watch it closely because it affects them directly.
Right. It's dollar for dollar.
Yeah. It does. And I want to put a little footnote. I thought it was a bad idea for the legislature to put in a 3% cap because there are times where a city may face a disaster where an infrastructure fails. And now, by law, we have basically created a cap that a city may have no alternative to fix a major infrastructure failure, through a normal bonding
What
process.
I think would be really interesting if the legislatures would pass a bill on themselves that say you can't raise your bill,
There you go.
By more than 3%. If they're going to impose that on the cities,
That's
impose it on yourself first and see how that works.
That's
Because that's just, it's not right. Rick, you talked about something else here, and I'm changing a topic quickly here. St. Bonnie's under construction. You kind of threw that in as you were talking about things that you were going to fix up. We all know construction is never convenient, and MnDOT will tell you that this is never convenient. But how is St. Bonnie working with 7 under construction? I think you mentioned 92 is under some work right now as well.
Yep, so we have the state of Minnesota doing construction in Minnetrista right off of Kings Point Road and County Road 11 to Carver County. And they're putting in a roundabout that has the detour completely goes around St. Bonnie. And so our businesses are struggling. So here's a plug, especially for all the businesses in St. Bonnie, please visit us. We need your support. A lot of great products, great place to come out and visit, nice new coffee shops.
So you're saying St. Bonnie's still open for business?
Absolutely. We are open for business. There's no waiting. Come on in. The great products are still there and the services are still there.
Good.
And then, of course, there's construction with Hennepin County on County Road 92, the major hill, as they try to resurface the road there to try and get out some of the bumps that as time flows on, you get a large hill and everything just kind of flows downhill. So you get the ripples.
So the 2 major roads that run east and west and north and south through St. Bonifacius are under construction.
Yes.
That just makes for a wonderful summer, doesn't it?
It does. And then I'd want to say that the city's not at fault either, but we have some construction on Kennedy and some of our other streets as well. So after all the construction is done, we're going to have a major facelift of our roads. So
it's a true Minnesota season, construction season, and here comes winter.
Right. Yeah.
So, Mayor, as we were talking before, you were saying that you were having some changes in staff out in Independence. You have a couple policemen that have...
Well, we hired a couple new police officers. We had one that was with us practically since the beginning of our department that had been on the drug task force, and he is retired now. And then we decided to add one new officer. So we interviewed, we had 139 applicants, and did a process of interviewing. All of 65 of them, I believe, were interviewed personally, and then 15 of them were interviewed by a local panel, and then we had interviews by the police chief and a couple other processes, and we ended up with 2 tremendous young fellows that have joined our staff at West Hennepin now. One of them is on his own. The other one is still in training, but we're very pleased with him with that. And then our Public Works Director, the person who's been with us for 36 years, has decided to turn in his retirement. So we're going to be promoting within the department for a director in that, and then be hiring a new person to fill the gap for the person that's being promoted and taking on some additional responsibilities.
You know, in communities like ours, and this is no disrespect to our police force or the fire force, the fire departments, Public Works is by far the most important position that we have. We don't have the GIS maps from 30, 40, 50 years ago, so when you lose an employee of that much institutional memory, that hurts a town like Independence.
It does. Unfortunately, over the years, we've been requiring that things be written down and where pipes are and so forth. But I'm sure that there's going to be many times that we're going to say, want to call him up and say, Dan, where is this or where is that?
Right. You'll pay for his cell phone bill for the next 3 years just so he has to.
And he lived in
call.
the city, you know. He lived
really?
in the city, grew up in the city, and so he does have a lot of institutional memory, you know.
That's always tough to lose.
And that's not unique. St. Bonnie's in the same position as well. We have an employee that's looking at retirement over the next couple of years, and we had to do the same thing. Please write everything down. It's that institutional knowledge. You don't realize how much money that saves you.
Oh, I know.
Right.
You know.
And you'll see just how good his notes is the next time you have a water main break.
That's right,
So, Mayors, we're going to take a quick break here, and I'm just going to let people know we're going to take a break, and we'll come back in a few minutes here and continue our discussions with Mayor Weible and Mayor Johnson. Thank you.
Previously on America's favorite daytime drama, Lake Minnetonka. Brick has a secret.
Bunny,
Yes, Brick?
I have a secret.
What is it?
I...
We interrupt this program to bring you this important message.
The Lake Minnetonka Communications Commission, located in Spring Park, Minnesota, offers free television production classes. You heard it right. Free, free, free. Our friendly and knowledgeable staff will help bring your idea to the big screen.
Why, thank you. We are very friendly and knowledgeable.
From studio lighting and nonlinear editing to on-location shooting, we'll guide you down the path you need to succeed. Hurry in, folks. An opportunity this good won't last forever.
So, you're not mad?
Of course not, you big lug. I just wish that you would have told me about LMCC's production classes. Maybe next time we can take classes.
Together?
Well, welcome back. We have Mayor Johnson from Independence and Mayor Weible from St. Bonifacius. I figured we'd start the second session off with just talking about some unique things that are happening in each of your cities. And Mayor Weible, you passed a pretty interesting ordinance here that a lot of people may have heard about. Well, if you're out here, you might have heard about it. But it's a topic that we hear in the news quite a bit. But you guys actually passed an ordinance on drones.
We did. And we didn't just pass an ordinance, we started with a resolution. And what was happening in Washington and kind of the rush to the conversation within the state of Minnesota drew some concern for our city council, especially looking at Three Rivers Park District, the State Patrol, as well as Minnetrista and Hennepin County. And when you look at all the policies and procedures that are out there for the use of firearms for a police department, we didn't find any guidance within the legislature or in any of the departments regarding the use of drones. And so by resolution, we first asked for the state of Minnesota to say, hey, let's take a pause on this, a 2-year moratorium, until we can pass some guidelines within the legislature, have a public debate regarding this, and also allow each of the jurisdictions to have a discussion within their police departments as to what are the policies and procedures going to be used, when is it appropriate, especially when you look at Minnesotans' dislike of the red light camera districts, even Minneapolis, where the red light camera districts were earlier this year, they backed away from them. And so we already have kind of this, as Americans, we have this protection of our privacy, and there's due process of law. And so as we look at these rights and there's responsibilities that we have as Americans and also as a law enforcement, we need to make sure that there's appropriate use of drones. And there's even a private aspect as well. What happens when one person uses a drone to trespass into another person's property, to use it to spy on somebody who's changing or just monitoring someone else's activities? Is that appropriate? So that's where we took the time to also then follow up with an ordinance, specifically for the city of St. Bonifacius, where we banned drones, especially any government-operated drones, without a valid search warrant. And if you are an owner of a drone, you have the right to use it on your property, but you don't have a right to go onto your neighbor's property without their permission. Okay. And it's a complaint-based ordinance. So you would actually have to file a complaint with the city, and then we could then establish a fine to anybody that violated it
Is
upon
there a fee
investigation.
structure already established for it?
Yep, there is.
So then this wasn't something that you had issues with thousands of drones buzzing over St. Bonifacius. You were just taking a topic that you felt wasn't really thought out all the way through and wanted to put something in place.
Correct. And also St. Bonifacius, we're kind of a weird town in this aspect, is that we are, with our water tower, we're the highest point in Hennepin County. And it's also one of the broadcast zones for drone use, as well as calibration for avionics, drones, anything else to do with GPS systems. We have an X right in front of our city hall that's used for calibration for the geo satellite systems, as well as drones, and then our water tower as well. And so by doing that, that kind of establishes a zone of protection, if you will.
So was this in your handbook when you became mayor that this points were there, or is that just you being you and you found out that information?
Well, I am the crazy one. I mean, we are the ones that wanted to...
I wouldn't say crazy. Eccentric, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's... well, when you look at the oath of office that I take,
Yep.
you know, which is to defend the Constitution, and I
Right.
look at where there's all this discussion using drones, and there's a lack of policies and procedures, I'll take our default position at this point.
Oh, and I wasn't suggesting the ordinance was wrong. How would you know that you were a, geo spot for
Actually, I found that out through research, as well as talking with folks. And I also found out after the fact, after we had passed the drone ordinance, there were several folks from the FAA that had called and spoke to me about this and said, "Do you realize how important this is?" And I said, "No." And then they taught me about it, and I said, well, gee, this seems like we've actually taken the right step.
Okay.
And until you establish policies and procedures as a state, a county, and even a police department, I think we need to have this ban until we actually have a good, honest discussion as to what we want to use them for. And I'm not saying that we should ban them all. I look at some of the possible uses of drones where if there was which is probably 6 months away, maybe even within 3 years, could you imagine a drone that's being used by a fire department that could fly around a burning building and identify victims that are inside of a burning building that can save a firefighter's life and time to go in? Absolutely, I would love to use that. Or the state patrol decides, and even Three Rivers Park District, to say, we want to use drones to search for autistic children in an open field.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, those are legitimate uses of it. But because we haven't established the policies and procedures, or even identify as a state or even as a county, until we do those identifications, I think we need to take this very slowly.
Sure. So when did that pass?
This is where you're rattling my memory here. I want to say it passed in March, April.
Okay.
So.
And you haven't had any issues? There hasn't been any unwarranted drones?
No, there hasn't been.
And I'm not being facetious with that, Rick. I was just curious, because I remember hearing about it, and
yep.
So it's interesting because as it'll become a bigger topic, and you
and
probably will be a benchmark for some people to take a look at.
And I really thought the council really thought it was important to have the discussion, and that was why we made the recommendation first, then passed the ordinance. And I think it's important for Minnesotans to look at the issue and talk to the legislators and their representatives to say, look, we think that there's a valid use here, but looking at where the President of the United States has lied about their use, and we find over time that he has used them on American citizens in foreign land without any type of a warrant. And then you have Eric Holder at the same time. And we passed our ordinance before a lot of this discussion was revealed. That Eric Holder has said in front of Congress that he could see a possibility where drones could be used on U.S. citizens in our own land, and even without a warrant. That is troubling. So these new developments, I believe, just prove the point that St. Bonnie is on the right track to say we need to have these discussions.
Sure. Well, that'll be interesting. We'll have to follow that, as we move into the future. Marvin, not as interesting as drones, but Independence has something that's unique from a lot of the cities in the community here, in that you have an election cycle that's coming up.
Yes, our elections are in odd years, and so we have 2 positions on the council that are up for election this year, and filings have already closed, and the 2 people who are incumbents are the only ones that filed. So they'll be up for election. But there's 3 school districts out of our 4 school districts that also have school board election on election day. So that election is very important. In fact, I always say it's more important when there's nobody that's filed against you, because people say, well, we don't need to go to the polls and vote because they'll win for sure. But that's easier for a write-in candidate to win at the same time. So, and then we also have a Heritage Fest at our city park. And that's coming up.
Wait a second, you jumped a topic here. You can't jump to the Heritage Festival yet, because I wanted to make the point that it's an election cycle. And Marvin, you've been mayor out there for 34 years now?
Yes.
And council before that, or is that 34 years of service?
No, 34 as mayor.
Okay.
3 on the city council, and then I was 3 years on the planning commission.
Okay, so 40 years of service to independence.
Right.
And well, you told us a story here that I want to share before I get to my next point, that you didn't volunteer, you didn't want to, or say I want to be a council member or whatever. You were just appointed, and you found out after you were appointed that you were going to be a city council member. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So 37 years ago, you were appointed, and
Right.
you've maintained involved, and you were recognized for your service this year.
Yeah. Yes. At the League of Minnesota Cities Convention this year, I was honored with the C.C. Ludwig Award, which 2 of my council members took the incentive to nominate me for that position. There's 1 elected person from Minnesota and 1 hired personnel that received that C.C. Ludwig Award, and I happened to be the recipient this year at the 100th anniversary of the League of Minnesota Cities Convention.
What an absolutely wonderful.
It was wonderful.
It's well deserved, Marvin.
Oh,
And
thank
as
you.
I've told you this before, but when I was mayor, you were my guiding principles when I first started that. You and I had a lot of conversations years back, and I appreciate your guidance, and I'm certain there are many other people, Mr. Emmer for one, you helped guide him and others. So thank you for your service, not only to independence, but for the others of us that have come to you to ask for some guidance.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now you can talk about Heritage Days.
Well, our heritage, we have a heritage festival. After 2 or 3 years hiatus, we've decided to hold it again this year, and it's Saturday the 14th of September at a city park. All day on Saturday, there's all kinds of different events there. So it's a nice family event, and there actually is some kind of a street dance and so forth on Friday night, but on Saturday it's games, contests, a lot of booths and that kind of stuff. So it's just an all-day family event.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So Friday night and Saturday.
Friday night
all
and
day.
Saturday, yeah.
And the band does not play on Saturday?
I do not know all the details
Okay.
of who's playing when and what, but
it's on your
I
website?
know, yes, there's a lot
Okay.
of stuff on the website for it.
So we'll have the website come up during this so that people, if they want to go
Okay,
there and
sure,
take a look,
fine.
we can take a look at that.
Great.
And because you're under construction, you don't really have anything going on. You have some things.
We have a late farmers market that's happening right now, and then of course in the closer to the Christmas season, we'll have a business group out there selling some of the fall antiques and Christmas.
And construction, if we don't get any waylays, should be done.
The Highway 7 construction should be done just in time for Halloween, so
Okay.
kind of a scary time to end construction.
Yeah, great. The goblins can do it.
Right.
If they can get out of the roundabout.
Right, exactly.
So, mayors, do you have anything else that you want to add here as we start wrapping up?
No, I just appreciate the interview again, and it's always, I always hear people watch these programs quite frequently. People comment about them, so I know that people enjoy having our visits here.
Well, I think it's one of the great things that the LMC does provide LMCC provides to the community, that
yeah.
you get to hear what's happening in communities, because like people wouldn't know about your drone ordinance or your CC Ludwig. I mean, these are
Right.
important. These are important things, as well as the budgeting and the fact that you guys are holding your budget steady. Those are important things for people to hear. And we all know that all of our residents don't come to the meetings and pay as close of attention as we'd like them to pay.
Well, what I find is interesting is that people are listening to our city council meetings from other cities around
Right.
the metro, around the lake area.
Right.
And I always kind of joke, don't you have anything better to do? But they regularly look at it.
Yeah.
And of course, being it's broadcast several times, it gives them an opportunity to see.
Right.
So.
Or they can go right to the website and see
Right.
it anytime they
Yes.
want.
Right,
So-
and it's interesting that you say that, because I also work at my store.
Oh, okay.
And it's funny when people come in and they'll say, I've seen you on TV. And
Right.
it's like, I'm a small little town. I mean, it's 1 square mile. And it's people that will say that they've watched our council meetings and they really enjoyed it. And I usually say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming that there was
Usually trying to
nothing
fall
better else on
asleep, right?
TV,
So you watch it to go to sleep.
Right.
But thank you both for being on here. We'll have you back. It'll be a little bit because we rotate through the communities. But thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
us.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us. Remember, if you want to learn what's going on in your local communities, you should be tuning in right here to the Tonka Report.